In the heart of Chicago, where wealth and poverty walked the same streets, two orphan twins, 7-year-old Emma and Ethan, found themselves at the mercy of a cruel stepmother named Carla, who only married their late father for his money. When he died in a car crash, leaving the children behind, Carla changed overnight. She locked the twins in the attic, fed them scraps, and treated them worse than animals. She wanted them gone not out of sorrow, but because she saw no value in them. One rainy morning, with their tiny bodies soaked and shivering, she dragged them to an alley downtown. Pretending they were just little beggars disturbing her peace there, she handed them over to a man with messy clothes and a long beard, offering him a few dollars to take the children away. She never even asked his name. All she saw was a homeless man who would disappear with the twins forever. But Carla had no idea. She just handed the twins to Benjamin Cole, a tech billionaire who had walked away from his empire after the tragic loss of his wife and child. He had chosen life on the streets to escape the noise of his wealth that only reminded him of pain. When Benjamin saw the fear in Emma's eyes and the quiet strength in Ethan's grip, something inside him stirred again. The billionaire who had lost everything was now handed a chance to love again. And the twins who had nothing were just given everything. What Carla thought was the end of a burden was only the beginning of a beautiful story that would shock the entire country. The rain came down without warning in the early hours of a Saturday morning in Chicago. It hit the windows hard, like little pebbles thrown by an angry sky. In a small house at the edge of a forgotten street, two small children sat curled up on a thin old mattress in the attic. Their names were Emma and Ethan, twin siblings with hearts too big for the pain they carried. They were only 7 years old, but life had taught them lessons too heavy for their tiny shoulders. Emma held on to her brother tightly, her brown curls wet from the leak in the roof. Her voice was soft like the wind outside as she whispered into his ear, "We have to be brave, Ethan." Ethan nodded without a word, his little eyes staring at the wooden ceiling above them, where mold grew in dark circles. He had stopped crying weeks ago when their father died in a car crash, and their stepmother Carla became their nightmare. Carla had married their father only 2 years before the accident. She came with bright red lipstick, fancy handbags, and a laugh that never reached her eyes. She smiled at the world but frowned at the children. From the day their father was laid in the ground, Carla changed. She stopped pretending. She locked the fridge. She locked the doors. She locked their hearts out of her life. The attic became their prison. She only opened the door to toss in leftover food or scream at them to stop making noise. Sometimes days passed without food. Sometimes all they had was water from a leaky pipe. Emma would always make Ethan eat first. She was the older twin by only 5 minutes, but she carried the weight of an entire lifetime. Carla had no love for them. In her eyes, they were stains on her new life. She had dreams of traveling the world, of dating rich men, and spending all the money their father left behind. But the presence of the twins made those dreams harder. People would ask questions. Teachers called the house. Neighbors stared. And Carla hated questions more than she hated the kids. One afternoon, after a call from the school about the twins being absent too long, Carla made a decision that would change everything. She stood in front of the mirror with her phone in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. Her reflection smiled back at her, cruel and cold. "They are not mine," she whispered to herself. They never were. She picked up a trash bag, filled it with the children's old clothes, tied it with a rope, and dragged it down the stairs. Then she walked up to the attic, through the door open, and barked, "Get up, both of you. We are going for a ride." Emma looked at her brother, then stood up first. Ethan followed without a word. They had learned long ago not to ask questions. Carla did not like questions. Questions meant slaps. Questions meant punishment. The car ride was quiet. The rain made everything darker. Carla did not speak. She played music on the radio and tapped her nails against the wheel. Emma held Ethan's hand tighter each time the car turned sharply. She did not trust Carla's silence. It was too calm, too planned. After 30 minutes, the car stopped. They were in a dirty alley behind a row of abandoned shops. The smell of garbage filled the air. Rats ran past puddles of water. It was the kind of place you walk past quickly, not stop at. But Carla stopped. She opened the back door and dragged the twins out one by one. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a few crumpled bills, and called out, "Hey, you over there. Yeah, you. Come here." From behind a dumpster, a man stepped forward. He looked rough. His clothes were torn. His beard was thick. His hands were stuffed in his coat. He looked like he had not spoken to anyone in weeks. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice dry. "Take these 2 kids off my hands," Carla said, looking at the twins like they were objects. "I will give you $20. Just take them and disappear." The man did not move at first. He stared at her, then at the twins, then back at her again. "You serious?" he asked. "Dead serious," Carla replied. "I have a life to live. They are not my problem anymore." The man walked slowly toward them. He looked at the twins. Emma met his eyes. She did not blink. Her hands trembled, but she did not look away. Ethan hid behind her, his fingers clinging to her shirt. The man bent down to their level and whispered, "Are you okay?" Emma nodded, even though she was not. The man looked back at Carla, took the money, and said, "Fine." Carla turned without another word, walked back to her car, and drove away without looking back. The man stood there with the twins in the pouring rain. "I am Ben," he said finally. "Benjamin Cole, but you can call me Ben." Emma still held Ethan's hand and asked, "Are you going to hurt us?" Ben shook his head. "No, kid, I am not going to hurt you. I promise." In that moment, something changed in his heart. For the first time in years, he felt something other than pain. He saw his daughter's face in Emma's eyes. He saw his son's laughter in Ethan's quiet strength. He had lost his family in a fire years ago. He had walked away from everything. The company, the mansion, the money, all of it. But today fate brought him 2 children who needed a second chance. And maybe, just maybe, they were also the second chance he needed too. He looked up at the sky as the rain fell harder. Then he took off his coat and wrapped it around both of them. "Come on," he said. "Let's find somewhere warm." As they walked away together, the city lights flickered in the distance, and somewhere far away in a luxury hotel, Carla opened a bottle of champagne and celebrated her freedom, unaware that she had just given away her biggest mistake and unknowingly written the first line of a story the world would never forget. The night was cold as Ben led the twins down a quiet street, lit only by old street lamps and flashing signs from rundown stores. The wind made a lonely sound as it danced between buildings. Emma and Ethan followed closely behind him, their small feet stepping in puddles, their clothes soaked and heavy. Yet for the first time in a long while, they felt something warm. It was not the coat Ben wrapped around them. It was the way he looked at them, like they mattered. Ben knew every corner of the streets. He had walked them for over 4 years, hiding from the life he once lived. Once upon a time, he wore expensive suits and drove luxury cars. He had built a tech empire before the age of 30. He was known in every business circle in America. But all that ended the day he lost his wife and child in a house fire. Grief swallowed him whole. He left his company, disconnected his phone, disappeared from every headline. The world thought he was dead, and he let them believe it. But tonight, something stirred in him again. As he watched the twins walk beside him, he remembered what it meant to care. He remembered love. And with that memory came a quiet promise in his heart. He would not let anything bad happen to them. He brought them to an old storage room he shared with a kind janitor named Pete. It was not much, just a small space behind a church with a worn-out couch and a space heater. But it was dry and safe. "We will stay here tonight," Ben said as he opened the door. Emma looked around and nodded. It was warmer than the attic. Ethan walked in quietly, his eyes searching every corner before sitting down on the couch. "You hungry?" Ben asked. The twins nodded slowly. "I have some soup and bread," he said, pulling out a plastic bag from behind the chair. He heated the soup using a small electric warmer plugged into the wall. It was not much, but to the twins it felt like a feast. Emma took her first bite and looked at Ben. "Thank you." Ben smiled a little. He had not heard those words in a long time, and from a child it meant even more. As they ate, Ben sat across from them, his eyes studying every bruise, every tear in their clothing, every quiet glance between the siblings. "So what are your names?" he asked gently. "I am Emma," she said, "and this is Ethan, my brother." Ben nodded. "Twins, huh?" "Yes," she replied. "I am older by 5 minutes. You take care of him, huh?" "Yes, always." Ben smiled again. Her words reminded him so much of his own daughter, who used to protect her baby brother even when they argued. His heart ached at the thought, but also felt something new. Maybe this was not just a moment of kindness. Maybe this was fate giving him another chance to be a father. After the meal, Ben gave them an extra blanket and told them to rest. He watched as they curled up together on the couch, their bodies wrapped around each other like vines holding on through a storm. He turned off the light and sat by the door, his thoughts loud in the silence. He had choices to make now. Big ones. He could not keep them here forever. They deserved more than old walls and secondhand blankets. But he also knew that going to the authorities meant risking them being thrown into the system. And from what he had seen in the news, that system did not always protect kids. It moved them around, sometimes hurt them. He could not bear the thought. His mind drifted back to his mansion in the hills. It had been empty since the fire. He still owned it, still had the keys. The company he left behind had grown bigger under new leadership, but his shares were untouched. His bank account was full. He was still rich, still powerful, just hidden. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. The next morning, the sun broke through the clouds as the rain disappeared. Ben walked out and got some clean clothes from a charity shop down the road. He picked a soft yellow dress for Emma and jeans and a hoodie for Ethan. He also found a toy for each, a teddy bear and a small red truck. When he returned, Emma's eyes lit up. "Is this for us?" "Yes," Ben said. "I thought you might like something new." Emma hugged the teddy bear tightly, while Ethan smiled softly and ran his fingers along the truck. "You do not have to do this," Emma said. "I want to," Ben replied. Later that day, Ben took them to a diner. He made sure they ate hot pancakes and eggs and juice. People stared. Some smiled. Some frowned. But Ben ignored them. He was already thinking of next steps. After the meal, he took them to a public library. He watched them flip through picture books and whisper stories to each other. And in those quiet moments, he made a decision. That evening, Ben went to a payphone. He dialed a number he had not called in 4 years. "Hello," said a voice on the line. "It is me," Ben said. "I need a car and a driver. I am coming back." The voice on the other side went silent for a moment, then said, "Welcome back, sir. We have missed you." Ben returned to the twins with a calm smile. "We are going somewhere new tomorrow," he said. Where Emma asked. "Home," Ben said simply. She looked at him, unsure what that meant. But his voice was steady and full of something she had not felt in a long time. Safety. That night, Ben did not sleep. He packed up what Lily had. He looked at the twins as they slept, and he made a silent vow. "No matter what it takes, I will protect them. I will give them the life they deserve." The next day, a black car pulled up in front of the alley. The driver stepped out in a suit and opened the back door. Emma and Ethan stared at the car with wide eyes. "This is ours?" Emma asked. "Yes," Ben said. "You two are not going back to that attic. You are coming with me." He helped them in and followed behind. As the car drove away, the city passed by in silence. But in Ben's heart, a storm had calmed. The billionaire in hiding was no longer hiding. He had found something more valuable than all the gold in the world. He had found a reason to live again. And for Emma and Ethan, the journey from the attic to the mansion had just begun. The car moved smoothly through the wide streets of Chicago before heading toward the hills. Emma and Ethan sat silently in the back seat, their eyes wide with wonder as the city disappeared behind them. Neither of them had ever been in a car this nice. The seats felt like pillows, and the windows were so clean it looked like they could reach through them. Ethan held his red truck in one hand, while Emma clutched the teddy bear against her chest. Everything around them felt like a dream. Ben sat beside them, quietly watching their expressions. His heart was full. It had been years since anyone sat next to him in that car. Years since he had opened the gates of his mansion. But today was different. Today was the beginning of something new. As they approached the entrance of the gated community, the security guard stood up straight and gave a sharp salute. He looked surprised when he saw Ben. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. We were not expecting you, sir." "I know," Ben said calmly. "I am back. Tell the staff to prepare the house." "Right away, sir." The gates opened slowly, revealing a long driveway surrounded by tall trees and trimmed bushes. At the end of the road stood a large mansion with white walls and black rooftops. It looked like something out of a movie. Emma gasped softly. Ethan leaned forward, pressing his face against the glass. Is that your house? Emma asked. It is our house now, Ben replied with a soft smile. The car stopped in front of the wide steps. The driver quickly got out and opened the door for them. Emma stepped out slowly, her feet touching the smooth stones beneath her. Ethan followed, still holding her hand. Welcome home, Ben said quietly. Maids and workers appeared at the door, staring in shock. They had not seen Ben in years. The last time he was here, he was broken, angry, and empty. But now he stood tall beside two small children with eyes full of hope. Ben turned to the head maid. These are Emma and Ethan. They will be staying here. Prepare 2 rooms next to mine. They are not guests. They are family. The maid nodded quickly and rushed off. Ben led the twins into the mansion. The hallway stretched wide with marble floors and tall mirrors. Chandeliers sparkled above them. The walls were filled with art and photographs. But the most beautiful thing in that house at that moment was the sight of the twins walking through the grand doors for the first time. He showed them the dining room, the library, the garden in the back with flowers and birds. Every corner was filled with things the twins had never imagined. When they reached the second floor, he opened a large door, revealing a cozy bedroom with soft beds and colorful blankets. This will be your room, Ben said to Ethan. Ethan walked in slowly, touching the edge of the bed. His fingers ran along the shelves filled with books and toys. Mine, he whispered. Yes, Ben said. And next door is Emma's room. Emma's room was pink and white, with a big window looking over the garden. There was a doll house in the corner and a rocking chair by the window. She walked in speechless. This is too much, she said. You deserve it, Ben replied. Later that day, they had their first real bath in a long time. The water was warm and full of bubbles. The maids helped them gently. They were given clean pajamas and soft slippers. That night, dinner was served in the large dining room. There were plates of chicken, mashed potatoes, vegetables, and fresh bread. Juice in glasses with little ice cubes that clinked when they moved. Emma looked at Ben. Why are you doing this for us? Because I see myself in you, he said. Because I once lost everything too. And because you deserve to be loved. Emma looked down at her plate. Tears filled her eyes. But they were not sad tears. They were full of something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. After dinner, Ben took them to the living room where a fireplace crackled gently. He sat on the couch and motioned for them to join him. They sat beside him, close like they had known him forever. Do you want to hear a story? He asked. Yes, Ethan said, for the first time since they arrived. Ben told them about a young boy who built computers in his garage, who dreamed big, who created a company that changed the world. He told them about falling in love with a woman who laughed like sunshine, about their 2 kids, and about how he lost them one terrible day. Emma held his hand as he spoke. Ethan leaned against his shoulder, and in that room something unspoken passed between them, a bond deeper than words. When it was time for bed, Ben tucked them in like a father would. He kissed Emma's forehead and brushed Ethan's hair back gently. Then he turned off the light and whispered, "Good night, my kids." As he walked back to his room, Ben felt something in his chest, a lightness he had not felt in years. The mansion that once echoed with silence now felt alive, with laughter, with footsteps, with love. But far away in the city, Carla sat at a poker table in a smoky room, laughing loudly as she counted her winnings. She had no idea where the twins were. She did not care. As far as she was concerned, they were gone forever. She had no idea that the man she thought was homeless was one of the richest men in the country. She had no idea that her actions would soon come back to haunt her. Back at the mansion, Emma and Ethan slept peacefully. For the first time in their lives, they had pillows under their heads and blankets that smelled like lavender. They dreamed of gardens and pancakes, and someone who cared. Ben sat by the window, staring at the stars. He had made a silent promise to protect them, and nothing in the world would stop him now. The next morning, the sun rose slowly behind the hills, bathing the mansion in golden light. Birds chirped softly from the garden, and the sweet smell of flowers entered the rooms through open windows. Inside the mansion, Emma woke up with a smile on her face for the first time in many years. She stretched her arms and looked around the beautiful room, still in disbelief that it was real. Her teddy bear sat beside her, clean and warm just like her heart. Ethan was already awake in his room building tiny roads on the carpet with his new toy truck. The sun danced on his face, and he laughed quietly as the wheels rolled back and forth. When he heard a knock on the door, he ran to open it, thinking it was Emma, but it was Ben with a big warm smile and 2 breakfast trays. "Morning, champ," Ben said. "I thought you two might like pancakes in bed today." Ethan's eyes widened, and he nodded quickly. Ben walked in and placed a tray on the table. Then he moved to Emma's room and found her already sitting on the bed with wide eyes. "I hope you are hungry," Ben said. Emma smiled and sat up straighter. "Yes, thank you." After breakfast, Ben gathered the twins and walked them through the mansion. He showed them every corner of their new home. They saw the indoor swimming pool, the movie room, the music room, and even a small art studio. "This place is like a dream," Emma said. "It is real now," Ben replied. "And everything here is yours too." As the day went on, Ben made a few important phone calls. He spoke with his lawyer, his personal assistant, and his old friend and doctor. He told them that he was back and that he was taking responsibility for 2 children. He asked for help in preparing legal papers and setting up their medical checks. He wanted to do everything right. But Ben knew that questions would come soon. The public still thought he was gone. His face had not been seen in years. And now, with 2 children by his side, he needed to make careful steps. By afternoon, Ben sat with Emma and Ethan in the living room. "I want to ask you both something important," he said. "Do you want to stay with me for a long time?" Emma looked at Ethan and then back at Ben. "Yes, but will you still want us when you find out everything about us?" Ben nodded. "I already know enough. You are kind, strong, and brave. And I want you here." Ethan whispered, "I want to stay too." Ben smiled and nodded. "Then it is settled. From now on, this is your home. And I am here for you always." That night, they watched a movie together and ate popcorn on the couch. Ben let them stay up later than usual because he enjoyed every laugh, every question, and every moment. He was learning to be a father again, and they were learning what love looked like. But while they built a new family in the hills dark, clouds began to form in the city. Carla was having drinks with some old friends when one of them mentioned something strange. "Did you hear about the old tech guy coming back?" they asked. "Benjamin Cole. Rumor has it he is back in the country. Showed up out of nowhere and bought toys and clothes for some kids." Carla froze. The glass slipped slightly from her hand. "What kid?" she asked casually. "2 little kids. Twins, I think. He showed up in a diner with them. Looked like he was their dad or something. People were talking about how sweet he looked. Some even took photos." Carla's heart began to race. She forced a laugh and changed the topic. But deep inside, panic started to grow. She went home and opened her old phone. She typed Benjamin Cole into the search box. Dozens of articles popped up, some old, some new. One caught her eye. It was from a blog that talked about spotting Ben at a diner with 2 kids. The photo showed a man with a beard and 2 little children eating pancakes. Carla zoomed in. Her heart skipped. It was them. It was Emma and Ethan. She dropped the phone and backed away from the screen. "That cannot be," she whispered. "That is impossible." She began pacing the room. How did a homeless man become Benjamin Cole? How did those brats end up in a billionaire's house? What does this mean for me? She remembered signing papers to close the late father's bank accounts. She remembered lying to the lawyer about the children's care. She realized that the truth came out she could lose everything. Worse, she could go to jail. She decided to stay quiet, to watch, to wait. But Carla was not good at waiting. And curiosity mixed with greed was a dangerous thing. Back at the mansion, Ben stood by the twins' bedroom doors and watched them sleep again. He had received a call earlier that day from his lawyer. "We need to make things official, Ben. You cannot just take care of them like this. We need legal documents, guardianship papers, birth records, school registration." Ben understood. He would do it, but he also knew it would draw attention. He had prepared the children. Slowly and gently. The next morning, Ben told Emma and Ethan that they would be going to see a doctor soon for a checkup, and then someone would help get them ready for school. Emma asked, "Will people take us away from you?" Ben knelt down and said, "No, I will do everything to make sure that never happens. But we have to do some things the right way now. They nodded. He called his private tutor and arranged for lessons to start the next week. He wanted the twins to learn from home until all legal matters were handled. He also called a therapist who could help them heal from their trauma. He was rebuilding a life, one piece at a time. But far away, Carla was calling someone too. She contacted a man named Ralph who worked at a small gossip site. "I have a story for you," she said, "about Benjamin Cole and 2 kids, but I want payment." Ralph listened carefully and agreed to meet. Carla had no idea that by trying to sell secrets, she was about to start a storm bigger than anything she could handle. The children were safe for now, but the world outside was starting to watch, and the truth was beginning to rise like smoke from a slow fire. Ben stood by the garden that evening watching the twins chase butterflies. He knew the world would ask questions soon, but he also knew one thing for sure. No matter what came next, he would protect them with everything he had. The week moved slowly but sweetly inside the mansion. Emma and Ethan settled into their new lives like flowers blooming in the sun. They woke each day to warm meals, smiling staff, and rooms filled with books and toys. Their laughter filled the hallways like music, and their footsteps echoed through grand rooms as if they were meant to be there all along. Ben spent every moment he could with them. He took them on morning walks around the garden, told bedtime stories, and helped them write their names again. He watched as Emma grew more confident, and Ethan started speaking more. It was like watching light return to a dark room. But behind the warmth of the mansion walls, something else was growing. Whispers, rumors, curiosity. Ben's return had not gone unnoticed. The business world buzzed with surprise. Newspapers ran small pieces asking why the once famous tech billionaire had suddenly reappeared. Some called it a comeback. Others called it a mystery. But no one had answers. And that only made the questions louder. Inside the house, Ben kept the children away from the noise. He turned down interview requests and ignored emails from old business partners. But he knew it would not last forever. One evening, while the twins painted in the art room, Ben met with his lawyer in the study. The fireplace burned softly as papers were spread across the desk. "We need to legalize their guardianship now," the lawyer said. "I have drawn up the documents. But there's a problem. We need their stepmother's signature or we have to go through court." Ben's face turned cold. "She gave them away in an alley like trash," he said. "She lost her right to anything." "I agree," the lawyer said. "But the law still needs a process. If she contests it, things could get messy. And worse, she might try to use the media to paint her own story." Ben looked at the photo on his desk. A picture of Emma and Ethan taken just 2 days ago in the garden. Their smiles were wide, their clothes bright. They looked like they belonged in this life. "We do it the right way," Ben said. "I will protect them." The lawyer nodded and began preparing the papers. Meanwhile, across town, Carla sat in a dim cafe sipping bitter coffee and waiting for Ralph, the gossip blogger. When he arrived, he looked eager with a cheap camera hanging from his neck and a small notebook in his hand. "So what do you have?" he asked. Carla leaned in and whispered, "The billionaire Benjamin Cole is not alone. He has 2 children living with him. Twins. They used to be mine." Ralph raised his eyebrows. "Used to be?" "Yes," she said. "I married their father. He died. I took care of them for a while. Then I let them go. But now they are with him." "Do you have proof?" "I can get some," Carla said. "Photos, papers, anything. But I want money. Big money." Ralph nodded slowly. "Send me what you have first. Then we talk price." Carla smiled, but her hands shook slightly. Deep down, she knew she was playing a dangerous game. But her greed was louder than her fear. Back at the mansion, Emma had a nightmare. She woke up crying and screaming, clutching the blanket tightly. Ben rushed into the room and held her close. "You are safe now," he said over and over. Ethan came running and held her hand. It was her. Emma whispered. I saw her face again. "Carla," she was shouting. She said we were nothing. Ben looked into her eyes and said gently, "You are not nothing. You are everything. She does not get to hurt you anymore." The next morning, Ben called the therapist and scheduled a session. He wanted the twins to start healing, not just living. healing. He also made a decision. It was time to tell the public a little of the truth. He called his assistant and arranged a private interview with a trusted reporter. No cameras, just words. A chance to control the story before others twisted it. The reporter arrived 3 days later. She was a kind woman with calm eyes. Ben met her in the garden while Emma and Ethan played at a distance. "I am not returning to the business world," he said. "I am not launching a new company. I came back because I found something worth living for." These 2 kids were left and arraigned by someone who did not care. I took them in. Now they are my family. That is all the public needs to know. The reporter nodded and took careful notes. She respected his privacy and promised to write only what he allowed. When the article came out, it was simple. No drama. No rumors. Just a soft piece titled "Billionaire Rebuilds Life with 2 Forgotten Children." The public responded with love. Social media lit up with messages of hope. People praised Ben for his heart. Some offered to send toys or books. Others wrote letters saying they were inspired to adopt or help children in need. But not everyone was happy. Carla read the article and nearly choked on her drink. "He is using them for attention," she snapped. "That rich fool. He thinks he is better than me." She called Ralph again and demanded money for her photos. He agreed, and she sent him a picture of the twins taken years ago when they lived in the attic. It was dark and blurry, but it was enough. The next morning, a new headline appeared on a gossip site. "Are these the children in Benjamin Cole's mansion?" The article suggested a hidden past. It hinted at secrets. It included Carla's photo and her claim that she once raised the twins. Ben read it with a tight jaw. Then he turned off the screen. He called his lawyer again. "File the papers," he said. "I do not care if she fights. Let her come. I will win. Emma and Ethan deserve peace." That night, Ben sat by their beds longer than usual. He watched them sleep. He remembered his old life full of awards and riches, and people who only wanted more. This new life was different. It was simple, honest, full of love. But he knew now that love would be tested. Walls were closing in slowly. But Ben Cole had already made a vow. He would not let the past steal their future. Not again. The sun was just beginning to rise when Ben stepped into his private office. The air was still and heavy. On his desk lay a fresh set of documents delivered that morning by his lawyer. They were the final step in claiming legal guardianship of Emma and Ethan. All that remained now was a court hearing and the signature of a woman who had already abandoned them once. Carla. Ben took a deep breath as he scanned through the legal terms. Each line felt like a battle, but it was a battle he was ready to fight. His phone buzzed, and it was his lawyer on the other end. "The hearing is scheduled for next Thursday, sir. We have submitted the petition, and the judge has agreed to a closed hearing to protect the children's identities." "What about Carla?" Ben asked calmly. "She has been contacted. She has agreed to appear." Ben nodded slowly and ended the call. He leaned back in his chair and looked out the window. The garden below swayed gently in the breeze. Emma and Ethan were laughing near the fountain, tossing breadcrumbs to the birds. They had no idea about the legal storm ahead, and Ben intended to keep it that way. Meanwhile, in a cheap motel across the city, Carla stood in front of a cracked mirror, fixing her makeup. She wore a suit she had borrowed from a friend and heels that were too tight. She stared at herself and whispered, "You were going to walk in there and make them listen. You were their guardian. You have rights." But her voice trembled. She remembered the look in Emma's eyes the day she handed them over. Cold, empty. She remembered how Ethan hid behind his sister and how the rain soaked their little bodies. But she pushed the memory aside. In her mind, she still believed she had done nothing wrong. She had simply made a choice. A hard one. When Thursday came, the court building was quiet. A private hearing had been granted. No press, no noise, just the judge, the lawyers, and the people involved. Ben arrived in a tailored gray suit, his presence calm but powerful. Emma and Ethan remained at home with their tutor and therapist. Ben wanted to shield them from everything. Carla entered the room and froze when she saw him. Clean-shaven, sharp eyes, the very image of power. Not the man she remembered in rags by the alley. not the man she gave $20 to with her stepchildren in hand. She sat across from him and forced a smirk. "Well, you clean up nice," she said. Ben did not reply. The judge entered and the hearing began. Ben's lawyer presented a clear case. He explained how the children were found, how they had been neglected, how Ben had provided shelter, food, medical care, and love. He submitted photos, documents, and even letters drawn by the children during their therapy sessions. Carla shifted in her seat as the judge turned to her. "Ms. Carla, do you contest the guardianship request?" She hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Ben, then to the judge. "I just want what is fair," she said. "I was their guardian. I raised them after their father died. I made sacrifices. I am not the villain here." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Is it true you handed the children over to a stranger in an alley?" "I did not know he was a stranger," Carla snapped. "He looked poor, yes, but he seemed kind." "You did not know him," the judge repeated slowly. "No," she admitted. "And you accepted money to give away the children." Carla's lips parted, but no words came out. The room fell silent. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Carla, you abandoned 2 minors in public without care or legal transfer. That is not only neglect, but a possible criminal offense." Carla's eyes widened. "I want them back," she whispered. "I changed my mind." Ben stood up, his voice calm, but full of strength. "Your Honor, the children are happy, healthy, and safe. They deserve stability. They deserve love, not regret." The judge looked at him, then at Carla. Then he looked at the papers again. "This court grants full and permanent guardianship of Emma and Ethan to Mr. Benjamin Cole, effective immediately." Carla gasped. "You cannot do that. I am still their stepmother." The judge replied without emotion. You are no longer fit to be." Carla stood up angrily, but the guards motioned for her to sit. Her face turned pale. The fight was over, and she had lost. After the hearing, Ben walked past her without a word. But just as he reached the door, Carla called out, "Why did you do this? Why do you even care?" Ben turned and looked her in the eyes. "Because someone had to." He left the courthouse and stepped into the sunlight. Back at the mansion, Emma and Ethan ran to greet him. "Did it go okay?" Emma asked. Ben knelt down and opened his arms. They both rushed into his embrace. "It is all done," he said. "You are mine now, forever." That night, there was no grand celebration. Just a quiet dinner in the garden under string lights and soft music. Emma picked flowers for the table. Ethan made a card that read, "Thank you, Dad." Ben kept the card beside his bed that night. It was more valuable than any stock or gold. Carla returned to her motel defeated. The press had not picked up her story. Ralph had stopped replying to her messages, and the money she received for photos had already been spent. She sat alone in the dark room staring at her phone. No calls, no messages, just silence. She had tried to sell the past, but the past had turned its back on her. Meanwhile, the mansion glowed with peace. The twins slept with full bellies and quiet hearts. Ben watched the stars from his window and whispered a prayer of thanks. The walls around them were stronger now, not just brick and stone, but love, trust, and a promise that no one would ever hurt them again. The days after courtroom victory felt like a warm breeze across a frozen lake. The mansion was calm, peaceful, and full of small, beautiful moments. Emma and Ethan were no longer scared to laugh. They painted together in the art room, chased butterflies in the garden, and read stories with Ben every night. The weight they once carried in their eyes was slowly melting away, replaced by the light of safety and love. Ben took time each day to speak with them about their feelings. He answered their questions with honesty and warmth. He never rushed them, never forced them. He was building trust one heartbeat at a time. But beyond the gates of the mansion, the world was beginning to talk louder. The gossip blog that Carla once contacted had published a follow-up story. It mentioned the courtroom hearing and hinted that the children were now legally tied to Benjamin Cole. Photos began to spread online. Some praised him. Others speculated about his motives. And soon larger media outlets picked up the story. One afternoon, while Emma and Ethan napped peacefully in their rooms, Ben sat in his office with his assistant and lawyer. "We need to make a decision," his lawyer said. "The press is circling. They want interviews." They want a public statement. Ignore them, Ben replied. You can ignore them, sir, his assistant added. But they will not ignore you. Ben stood by the window, looking out into the garden. I will speak to the public, but on my own terms. The next day, Ben called his old friend who worked in media. He arranged for one control video interview. No cameras in the mansion. No questions about the children's past. Only one thing. The truth. The interview was recorded in Ben's private library. He sat in front of a fireplace in a simple shirt and spoke clearly. My name is Benjamin Cole, he began. For years, I walked away from everything after I lost my family. I left behind wealth, success, and comfort because my heart was broken. I wandered the streets looking for peace and never found it. Then one day, I met two children, Emma and Ethan. They were cold, hungry, and alone. Their eyes held the same pain mine once did. I took them in. I gave them food, shelter, and care. But they gave me something more. They gave me purpose. They gave me love. I am not trying to be a hero. I am not looking for fame. I just want to give these children the life they deserve. That is all I ask. Let us live in peace. The video was released the next evening. Within hours, it had over 1 million views. People across the country shared it. Social media flooded with support. Hashtags like "Thank You, Ben" and "Protect Him and Ethan" began to trend. People sent gifts to the mansion, letters from other orphans, messages from parents who had lost children. Ben read each one carefully and placed the most touching ones in a box for Emma and Ethan to see one day. But the attention also brought concern. We need to tighten security, his assistant advised. To gate the cameras and the staff. Everyone needs to be checked. Ben agreed and made changes immediately. He wanted the children safe. Meanwhile, Emma started asking deeper questions. Why do people talk about us online? She asked Ben one night. Because people are curious, he said. And some people are kind. They like hearing stories of hope. You give them hope. She looked up at him and whispered, "Will she come back?" Ben knew who she meant. "No," he said gently. "She cannot hurt you anymore." Ethan began having fewer nightmares. He slept through the night. He started drawing pictures of the mansion, the garden, and Ben. He called it home. One drawing showed the three of them holding hands under the sun. Ben kept that one in his wallet. But not everyone online was kind. Some people posted cruel comments. Others questioned the truth. One article even suggested Ben was doing it for attention. He ignored them all, but he could not ignore one email. It came from a woman named Denise, a social worker from another state. She claimed she had once investigated Carla for child neglect, but the case was closed when Carla moved cities. Ben forwarded the email to his lawyer, who dug into it further. It turned out Carla had a long history of trouble, reports of abuse dating back years. She had simply vanished before any real action could be taken. Ben made a quiet decision. He contacted the authorities and gave them everything he had. He wanted a full investigation, not for revenge, but to make sure Carla never did to another child what she did to Emma and Ethan. Weeks passed and peace returned. The press quieted. The public moved on. But the mansion remained full of life. Emma started online classes with a private teacher. She loved reading and writing stories. Ethan enjoyed science and building models. Ben spent afternoons helping with homework and cheering them on. He also began to work again. Slowly, quietly, from home. He started mentoring young tech founders and donating to children's charities. He was building something new, not just a company, a legacy. One night, as they sat under the stars on the back porch, Emma looked at Ben and asked, "Do you think Daddy would be proud of me?" Ben looked at her and said, "He would be proud of both of you. And so am I." Ethan leaned against Ben's side and whispered, "Are we a real family now?" Ben wrapped his arms around them and replied, "Yes, we are a real family. Nothing will change that." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the soft rustle of trees. Inside the mansion, everything was calm. Outside, the world moved fast. But inside those walls, there was love, real and strong. The kind that cannot be bought or broken. The kind that saves lives. It was a cloudy Saturday morning when Ben received a phone call that stirred the air inside the mansion like a silent storm. He had just finished making breakfast with Emma and Ethan. They were laughing over spilled orange juice and burnt toast when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. It was the private number of the detective who had taken up Carla's case. Ben wiped his hands and stepped out onto the balcony before answering. Mr. Cole, the voice, said calmly, "We have news. Carla has been arrested." Ben's heart stilled for a moment. "What are the charges?" he asked quietly. "Child neglect and endangerment," the officer replied. "We uncovered previous reports from other states that she managed to escape through relocation. But your report and the interview transcripts with the children helped us reopen and tie everything together." Ben nodded slowly. "Thank you. There is more," the officer continued. "She confessed to taking payments from individuals in the past to leave children with strangers. Yours were not the first." Ben's jaw tightened. Will she face prison time? "Yes," the officer said. "The case is strong. She will not walk away this time." Ben ended the call and stood still watching the garden below where Emma and Ethan were chasing butterflies near the rose bushes. He felt a mix of relief and sorrow. Carla had been a shadow in their lives, but now the shadow was fading. He walked back into the kitchen and kissed the top of Emma's head. "How about we bake cookies today?" he said. "Yes," they both shouted with excitement. While the twins measured flour and broke eggs, Ben's heart remained heavy. The justice Carla would face in court would not erase the pain she caused, but it would prevent more damage. And that mattered. Later that evening, after dinner, Ben sat with the children in the library. The fireplace crackled and soft music played from the speaker. He looked at them and said, "I want to talk to you both about something important, but only if you are ready." Emma nodded. Ethan leaned against his side. "The woman who used to take care of you." "Carla, she has been arrested. She will not come near you again." The room went quiet. Emma's lips trembled. Ethan grabbed Ben's hand tightly. "Does this mean it is over?" Emma asked softly. "It means the worst part is over," Ben replied. "You are safe now, and no one will ever take you from me." Ethan whispered. "Good." Ben pulled them both into a hug. They sat there for a long time, wrapped in silence and warmth. Over the next few days, Emma grew more curious. She asked Ben questions about her real father, about who he was and what he did. Ben answered with care. He was smart, Ben said. He loved reading books and working with numbers. He used to sit you on his lap and read you bedtime stories. Emma smiled. "And Mom, she was beautiful," Ben replied. "She sang to you both, and she loved you more than anything." Emma touched her chest. "I do not remember much, but sometimes I dream about her." Ben nodded. Dreams are memories that refuse to fade. He showed them a small photo album their father had left behind. Emma and Ethan flipped through the pages quietly. Tears filled Emma's eyes when she saw a photo of her mother holding her as a baby. Ethan stared at a picture of their father, holding both twins on his lap. That night, they placed the photo album on their nightstand. It became their most precious treasure. Meanwhile, Ben received another message. A popular magazine wanted to name him Man of the Year. They wanted a cover story about his life and the children. He declined. "This story belongs to us," he told his assistant, "not the world." He instead focused on something greater. He started the Emma and Ethan Foundation, a charity aimed at protecting abandoned children and supporting foster homes across America. He used his wealth to build shelters, fund school programs, train parents, and give voice to those too small to speak for themselves. The media respected his privacy, and the story slowly faded from the spotlight. Inside the mansion, Emma and Ethan were growing stronger every day. Emma started writing poems and drawing her feelings in colored pencil. Ethan built a small wooden model of the mansion and called it our forever house. One afternoon, Emma stood in the garden, holding a piece of paper. "Can I read you something?" she asked Ben. "Of course," he said. She cleared her throat and read. "I used to live in shadows, afraid of every sound. But then you found us gently and turned our lives around. You gave us more than shelter. You gave us air and light. You stayed when we were crying. You held us every night. Now love lives in the corners of every wall and stair. And when I think of family, I see you standing there." Ben's eyes filled with tears. He stood, and hugged her tightly. "That is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard," he whispered. Ethan handed him a drawing. "This is us in space," he said. "You, Emma, and me, floating together forever." Ben laughed through his tears. "I would go to space with you both anytime." The family grew even closer. They celebrated holidays with joy. They created traditions: pancake Sundays, movie night Fridays, storytelling under the stars. But one morning Emma asked, "Will we ever tell people the full story about where we came from?" Ben looked at her and said, "When you are ready, and only if you want to." She nodded. "Maybe one day." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. The world moved on. But inside the mansion there was peace. There was purpose. And most of all, there was love. The shadows from the past had tried to return, but light had won. Autumn arrived with gold and red leaves falling gently over the hills that surrounded the mansion. The air turned crisp and the trees whispered in the wind. Inside the mansion, the warmth of love continued to grow like fire in the hearth. Every room carried laughter, every hallway echoed with footsteps, and every morning began with hugs and promises of new beginnings. Emma and Ethan had found rhythm in their days. They woke early and made their beds. They studied with their private tutor in the library. They baked cookies on weekends and read books by the fire each evening. Their fear had faded, replaced by joy and curiosity. One day, while sorting through the attic with Ben, they found an old, dusty trunk. It creaked as it opened, revealing photo albums, trophies, and letters from Ben's past. Emma pulled out a framed picture of a woman with curly brown hair and soft eyes. "Who is she?" Emma asked. Ben smiled sadly. "That is my wife. She passed away a long time ago." Emma looked at the photo closely. "She looks kind. Was she your best friend?" "She was," Ben said softly. "Just like your mom and dad were to each other." Ethan found a music box buried under some papers. He opened it and a soft melody played. The sound filled the attic and wrapped around them like a lullaby. "Did you play this for your kids?" Ben Ethan asked. "Every night," he replied, "just like I do now for you." They sat in the attic for a long time looking at memories, sharing stories, holding on to each other. That evening after dinner, Emma asked a question that had been on her heart for weeks. "Can we visit our parents' graves?" Ben looked at her with gentle eyes. "Yes, it is time." The following morning they drove to a quiet cemetery outside the city. The sky was pale blue with soft clouds drifting slowly. They walked hand in hand through rows of stones until they reached two headstones side by side. "Here lies Daniel Brooks, beloved father, strong heart, gentle soul." And beside it, "Here lies Clara Brooks, devoted mother. Her love lives on." Emma knelt by her mother's stone and placed fresh daisies on the grass. Ethan stood beside her holding Ben's hand. "Hi, Mom," Emma said quietly. "I hope you know we are okay now. We are safe, and we miss you every day." Ethan spoke next. "Hi, Dad. I have a truck now, and a big room, and we laugh a lot. I wish you were here, but I think you would like Ben." Ben knelt beside them and placed his hand on each of their backs. "They will be proud of you both," he whispered. "More than you know." They stood in silence as the wind moved gently around them. It was not sadness they felt. It was peace, a circle closing softly. On the way home, they stopped for ice cream. Emma picked chocolate. Ethan chose strawberry. Ben had vanilla. They sat in the car eating with the windows down as music played softly from the radio. That night, Emma wrote in her journal, while Ethan drew pictures of angels in a sketchbook. Ben watched them from the doorway, feeling something inside him shift. It was pride, but also healing. He had lost before. He had known pain deeper than words. But now he had found something more powerful than grief. A second chance. The next day, Ben received a letter in the mail. It was from the State Department of Child Services. "We have closed the case. Your guardianship is officially recognized without question. No further investigation required. We thank you for your contribution to child welfare." Ben placed the letter in a drawer and exhaled deeply. One more door closed. One more shadow gone. At dinner, that evening, Emma raised her glass of apple juice. "To family," she said. "To family," Ben and Ethan echoed. Later that week, the family prepared for a special celebration. Emma and Ethan's birthday. They had never had a proper party before. No balloons, no candles, no music. But this year would be different. Ben called in favors and planned a small gathering in the garden. There were strings of lights, cupcakes, music, and even a magician. The twins invited their tutor, the gardener, the maids, and a few other children from nearby families. When Emma saw the cake with both their names written in frosting, her eyes filled with tears. "This is the best day ever," she whispered. "You are the best gift I ever received," Ben said, hugging them tightly. That night, after everyone left, the garden glowed with the last flicker of lights. Emma and Ethan danced barefoot in the grass, while Ben watched with a quiet smile. The stars blinked above as if they too were celebrating. They were no longer orphans. They were no longer broken. They were a family. The world outside could whisper all it wanted, but inside the walls of that mansion, they had something stronger than gossip and pain. They had love. They had each other. And nothing would ever break that again. Winter arrived gently that year. Snow fell in soft waves, covering the trees and rooftops with a blanket of white. The mansion looked like something from a storybook, with lights glowing in every window and the scent of cinnamon drifting through the halls. Inside, the warmth of family wrapped around the walls like an invisible blanket. Emma and Ethan were now different children from the ones who once stood shivering in an alley. They had grown stronger and more confident. Emma wore a soft smile that could light up any room, and Ethan laughed freely, now his eyes no longer shadowed by fear. Ben stood in the doorway of their study room one cold morning, watching them work on a holiday card for a local children's hospital. Emma was writing a message inside, while Ethan drew snowflakes and smiling stick figures. "You are both amazing," Ben said. "Your kindness makes this world better." Emma looked up and said, "You made us feel safe enough to be kind." That afternoon, they sat by the fireplace with mugs of hot cocoa in their hands. "I want to do something big one day," Emma said. "I want to help kids like us." "You already are," Ben replied. "You help them every time you smile." Ethan nodded. "And I want to build a house, like this one, but for kids who do not have anywhere to go." Ben's heart swelled with pride. "Then you will, and I will help you." They had everything they needed now. Safety, purpose, and a father who believed in them. As Christmas approached, they decorated the house together. The tree in the main hall reached almost to the ceiling. Emma chose silver and blue ornaments, while Ethan insisted on a bright red star for the top. Ben lifted him high to place it there as Emma clapped and laughed. On Christmas Eve, they sat under the tree with blankets wrapped around them, watching old movies. Snow fell outside while the fireplace warmed the room. Emma looked at Ben and said, "I used to think no one would ever love us, but I was wrong." Ethan leaned against Ben and whispered, "You are our real dad now." Ben placed his arms around them and said, "You are my real children. You always will be." That night before bed, Ben placed a small wrapped gift at the foot of each of their beds. Inside each box was a necklace. Emma's had a tiny heart with the words "always loved." Ethan's had a small silver key with the words "forever home." When they opened the boxes the next morning, they both cried and hugged Ben tightly. Later that week, Ben took them to visit one of the homes funded by their new charity. Dozens of children ran around playing with donated toys. Emma and Ethan helped pass out snacks and read stories to younger kids. One little girl with curly hair tugged on Emma's dress and said, "You look like a princess." Emma knelt down and smiled. "So, do you?" Ethan helped the boy build a tower of blocks and laughed when it fell over. Ben watched from a distance, his heart full. He had once believed his life was over, but now he knew it had only just begun. That evening, as they drove home through snowy streets, Emma said, "I want to do this forever." "You will," Ben said. "You were born to shine." Back at the mansion, they curled up with warm blankets and soft music. The wind howled outside, but it was peaceful inside. One day, a reporter wrote an article titled "From Shadows to Light: The Unseen Journey of the Cole Family." But the truth was, this story was not about money or fame. It was about healing, about hope, about second chances. Carla remained behind bars serving her sentence, quietly with no visitors, no headlines, and no more chances to hurt anyone. And the world moved on. Seasons passed and the mansion remained full of life. Emma grew into a young woman who wrote books for children. Ethan became an architect who designed shelters for families in need. Ben stood beside them through every step. A proud father, a steady light. Years later, on a quiet afternoon, Emma stood by the garden, holding a framed photo. It showed 3 people, a man with kind eyes and 2 children full of light. This was the day it all changed, she said. Ethan stood beside her smiling. The day we found home. Ben joined him, his hair grayer now, but his smile the same. No, he said softly. The day we became a family. They stood together, watching the sun set over the hills. No more fear, no more pain, just love. And the mansion stood tall behind them, a forever home, a place where broken hearts had been made whole, a place where 2 orphan twins and a grieving man had found each other and built a family unbroken. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed the video, please give a thumbs up and don't forget to leave a meaningful comment below. Let us know your thoughts and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. It means a lot to us to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content like this. And to all our returning subscribers, thank you for your continued support. We couldn't do this without you. Stay tuned for more exciting videos coming your way, and we'll see you in the next one.